Alright, people. I think we're on. This first few minutes of the stream, so I was a little tricky to figure out what's going on with YouTube, but we'll get there. Today we're going to talk about the fires that are happening in Siskiyou County. We're going to look at the Shelly Fire, which is still really going pretty crazy. And we're going to also look at the lake fire down in Santa Barbara area. And we're going to look at the Royal Fire. Hang on here, we're still getting this stuff figured out. There we go. Okay. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's fire season for sure. We're going to jump kind of right into looking at the Shelly Fire. I've got some infrared here that was shot yesterday afternoon, or yesterday evening really, and then another one that was shot last night at 10:30. The fire's moved a lot, and so let me get my up here. Okay, there's kind of a lot going on this image right now. Turn off the fire lines. Okay, so I got some landmarks on here. Got some comments yesterday that it's hard for people to see where things are. So I wanted to throw up some place names, so we just make them a little bigger. Yeah, I'm using Google Earth Pro. It's a really old program, but it's freaking amazing. You can do anything with it. I hope Google never puts it away, because it's pretty awesome. So just in the big picture, here's Fort Jones. And then you go up Highway 3, here's Greenview, and then Etna. So every little yellow dot here is a structure. And we got Kidder Creek Camp right in the middle. And then here's Kidder Creek, goes up this way, and then we got Babs Fork Creek. Up at the top we got Cliff Lake. Over here we got Whiskey Butte. And back over here is Etna Summit, going out to Sawyer's Bar and Forks of Salmon. Over here we got the Shackleford Trailhead, Big Meadows Trailhead, Red Mountain. And then back here is Black Marble Mountain. So the fire night before last jumped across the PCT. The PCT runs right along this ridge here, and spotted down into this slope here. We watched it kind of really get pretty extreme here on the webcams. And then yesterday it pushed down the canyon. So white here is where the fire was at 7:30 last night. And then by 10:30, 10:45, it had run to the top of the mountain here. It slopped over to the other side, and it hadn't. Let's see. Yeah, so it spread quite a bit in that 3-hour period, kind of between going through dusk. So I'm not sure where it's at now, but yesterday you couldn't really see on the webcams whether or not it was pushing up this side of the canyon, but it is. So what that means today is that the fire is likely to, as we said yesterday, it's hard to see a scenario really for me where the fire does not burn this whole basin, just because we don't have time. There's not time for them to really establish fire lines out ahead of a fire that's this big, and with these conditions, they're not going to put firefighters out on ridges close to a large fire that's, this fire hasn't already, when it runs this slope, it's going to throw spots in the next drainage. It might take a while for the fire to burn back down, but each time it runs one of these slopes and makes a big run, it can easily throw spots out, a mile. So I want to show you the fire lines from 2017. This fire line here has already been slopped over, so that's probably not going to get used. I don't know what kind of work has already been done. The ops map from the team hasn't really showed any line construction, so I don't know what the status is on them reopening this fire line. Like I said with this other run, like, the conditions are so extreme that even if they get this fire line open, they don't have very good conditions to fire it. And that's really what makes dozer lines effective on big fires, is you put in a dozer line and then hopefully you have a window of opportunity to put fire on the ground and burn it out. And that's probably not going to happen just because it's so dry and hot that if they do put a bunch of fire on the ground here burning off a fire line, they're probably going to lose control of that firing operation, and no one really wants that to happen either. So I'd say we'll have to see what this fire on top here does today. One thing that does happen often on big fires in the Klamath is we get an inversion. We pump up so much smoke that we get an inversion, and that stifles fire behavior, and then the fires can back for days at a time. It's hard to tell if that's going to happen. I'm not really a very good meteorologist, so we're going to have to punt to some other folks on that. But we do have some weather stuff to go over with you guys. So big picture on Shelly is, given these weather conditions, Shelly Fire is pretty much going to do what she wants to do until the weather changes. So let's look at some webcams here. Hey, there's a picture of me. This is Shelly. Let's look at Shelly for the last 12 hours. So it was yesterday afternoon. At nighttime you can see the fire going up and slopping over. And so this is after it was mapped, but you can see it's running kind of up canyon. So you see this inversion, smoke out in this part of the valley, but fire's above that, so it can breathe. I'm not sure if we got other cameras here. Fort Jones cameras, they do overtime here in fire season. Yeah, and usually with these cameras, one's watching the fire, another one's kind of looking around. So they got cameras all over the state, and then you get out here into the Klamath and big old hole in there because a lot of wilderness. Okay, let's check out. Check out the IAP here. So this is the IAP, Incident Action Plan. I get this stuff from a website called the FTP site, ftp.wildfire.gov, and it's a public website that is a good place to find information on from the teams. This really posts it's a sharing site that the teams use to share their maps and other documents. Okay, here's forecast last night coming from Julia Rutherford, who's a real veteran incident meteorologist from the National Weather Service. She says strong upper level ridge will shift gradually eastward but remain close enough to bring very hot and unusually dry conditions to Shelly. Afternoon instability will continue increasing in response to the movement of the ridge, bringing deep vertical mixing potential in the afternoon. So we've had this high pressure weather that's been sitting over the top of us for the last week that's been making us extremely hot. And as that's moving, we've got kind of instability as that weather front system moves through. There's instability behind it. Under that front, we've had extremely stable weather because all that pressure is sitting on top of us, and there's no weather systems really moving across the globe. They're just parked over us, and that's why it's so hot. As that moves, then the mixing of the atmosphere is freer, basically. And so when she says there's deep vertical mixing potential, it means that the fire can really breathe. And oftentimes high pressure can help inhibit we haven't seen giant ice caps on these fires. We've seen columns of smoke, but they're not going up 30,000 feet and getting a white top on them, which we call an ice cap or a capping out. So as the instability increases with the front moving, we can see more explosive fire behavior. Mid-level moisture will be extremely limited, though a slight increase in it will bring the potential for pyrocumulus on top of the smoke column. Winds will largely be terrain-driven, but enhanced due to hot temperatures. So we would expect afternoon winds to be blowing up the canyon, moving the Shelly Fire away from Scott Valley. Hot and dry, upslope winds. They'll increase late in the morning and early afternoon. So we'll see some runs up Kidder Creek. Valley inversions lifting mid-morning, becoming unstable with potential for deep mixing. Julia is a really awesome weather person. So I appreciate all the work that the IMETs do for us. Okay, tomorrow continue hot and dry, a little cooler. Temps for the mid-80s to 100 in the valleys. Still really dry tomorrow. RH is 11. Overnight recovery is 25 to 30, which still isn't great, but it's a lot better than we've had. A little higher recoveries in the valleys. So looking out Wednesday through Saturday, gradual increase in mid-level moisture, which gives us more chance of thunderstorms in the afternoons. Isolated chance of thunderstorms by Friday and Saturday. Slight cooling as the onshore pressure increases, so we get a little more flow off the ocean. Okay, and the fire behavior forecast is from Patrick Doyle, another veteran. Patrick's been doing this work for my whole career. Critical fire conditions that support large fire growth: hot and dry, low recovery overnight, very poor recoveries in hot and dry. Continue to dry out fuels. Expect heavy dead fuels, logs and snags to be receptors for embers in the short and long range spotting. Active fire growth on the in Kidder Creek drainage. Okay, so this is the IIP. It shows you who's where, what crews are assigned to the different divisions. I've got a map here. Let's see. Here's a map with yesterday's perimeter on it. So it's Division Charlie, Division Echo are the kind of left and or right and left sides of the fire as you're looking at them. So if you look at what resources are on the this will show you the resources. There's not a lot of there's 2 hand crews up there. There's a strike team of inmate crews, meaning several inmate crews. There's a strike team of engines and a strike team of dozers. That's and then a couple inmate crews on the left-hand side of the fire. Look for opportunities to construct direct line where safe to do so. For those sides of the fire, there's not a lot of opportunities to do that. So we'll get into this a little deeper. I haven't had much time to look at the resources, but this basically tells you, like, we've got a couple hotshot crews. But the IP can be helpful in kind of figuring out what the strategy is. There's a falling module, smoke jumpers. All right, so Shelly's going to do what she wants to do. All right. All right. I got an email today from Sharna Gilmore, who's the director of the Scott River Watershed Council, and she said that I was being a bit harsh on EcoTrust Forest Management (EFM), who own the land out here. Let me turn on their ownership. They own this land in purple. I did go on a rant about carbon and how they've got, so you can see that quite a bit of their land is burned now, and quite a lot of their land is going to continue to burn. And so yeah, I went off on them regarding their carbon banking on this, and I do have a chip on my shoulder about carbon. It's kind of one of the issues that really kind of gets me riled up. But it wasn't fair to just completely bash their overall land management. And so I admit that I'm ignorant of their overall kind of strategy for this land. I kind of jumped down their throats because they're doing the carbon stuff on this land, and I have a real chip on my shoulder about that. So Sharna Gilmore, I'm going to talk to her today, but she said, and so did my friend Jamie Allen, who's worked up there a lot, that EFM's doing some really good things with riparian restoration, with meadow restoration, and that some of the locals appreciate changes in land management since EFM took over. So I'll get more information on EFM, and I'm hoping to talk to someone from Jefferson Resources, who's their forester. So as I dig into it, there's obviously always more to it. I won't let up on the carbon stuff. I see some comments here that that it's all right to go off on about carbon. I will continue to kind of push on the carbon stuff, but I don't want to totally throw other good things they're doing under the bus. So I know land management's complicated, and that there's a lot of good folks working on doing good things with land management, but I do like to jump on stuff that I think is total bullshit, and getting paid to conserve carbon in a place like this that's just obviously super prone to likely to burn up because of past land abuse and climate change and fire suppression and everything else. Yeah, it's crazy shit. Anyway, if you're a Jefferson Resources forester and you got a great plan of how you're going to make this place better, we'd like to hear about it. We'll give it airtime to anyone who wants to talk about the difficulty in managing timberland, and kind of what y'all have been thinking about how you might be able to keep this place from burning up. Someone wants to talk about the North Fire. All right, well, I see over here that the viewers agree on carbon. All right, well, I do feel bad for these folks who own the purple land that's going to burn up. Climate change, folks. Climate change is a bitch. I think in general, forestry's had this huge blind spot when it comes to fire. over the last 20 years, and so I'm always interested in talking to foresters about that. Like, and I think forestry's had blind spots in a lot of ways. You know, when you look at the condition of our forests and the enormous losses we're taking, like the entire Plumas National Forest, all the land like within 50 miles of where I grew up, except like one direction, that's burnt to a crisp. Like that's in large part on UC Berkeley, Humboldt State, University of Oregon, Oregon State University. Like all of our best science, all of our best forest science said that this was the way to manage forests. That these formulas of maximizing growth and maximizing stocking and fire suppression and all the other stuff that we know now has completely effed us over. Like that was the stuff that was coming out of our best and brightest forestry thinkers, right? And now the same formulas are being used to quantify carbon, quantify how much we can grow. And so I just worry that the same way that we kind of blew it with the math and spreadsheet approach to forestry, is we're using the same exact science to figure out how to grow the most carbon so we can sell the most credits to any sucker that'll buy them. I mean, in some cases, it's a Canadian Teachers Pension Fund, right? Quincy Library Group. I'm not sure what that's about. Wildfire 371. What are you talking about with the Quincy Library Group? Anthony Bracey, thanks, man. You're rescuing me from the rant. I'm going to jump over to talk about the Royal Fire. Watch out. Someone gave me a soapbox. I love talking about forestry. Oh, okay, well, here's just on the way there. This is a Dixie Fire. Million acres. I grew up right there. This is my homeland. This is my brother's place down here. Greenville all burned up. Like that in large part is due to us failing to comprehend the potential. Right, like here. Sorry, map. Okay, rap about Royal. All right. There's a Dixie Fire, blue, million acres. We'll talk more about that. Obviously, that's Lookout got its birth kind of on the Dixie Fire. This has all been salvage logged now all around Chester, but this is all land that we thought was pretty fire resilient. The flats here, Collins Pine had a great reputation for doing a good job of forestry, and we lost 100,000 acres of land here in 2 days. Because this land was FSC certified, Forest Stewardship Council, as like, hey, they're doing it right to grow timber for the long run. And obviously that stewardship certification did not really adequately address fire risk. So just the same with forest sustainability, same with carbon. Like we have to rethink what it means, what it takes to have sustainable forestry. My humble opinion is that we can't do that without putting fire on the ground. Lots and lots and lots of fire on the ground at the right time of the right year. Okay, so jumping over here to Lake Tahoe, Highway 80. Give you a little orientation. Here's Kingvale. Here's where Highway 20 kind of hits the top of the hill at Highway 80. Goes up to Sugar Bowl up here. And so the Royal Fire yesterday, it started down below Royal Gorge, and it made a slope-driven run up and out of the canyon, away from Serene Lakes, I gotta say. So let's see, north up. Here's Serene Lakes, all the structures around there. And then, where'd my fire go? Dang. Sorry, folks. Over here's the Cedars. They're doing something funny now where they, here. don't know where my fire went. Well, let's see what the MODIS and everything has to say about it. It's a satellite heat detection. So the good thing was that the fire started on the south side of the river and ran up the north slope, away from Serene Lakes. I haven't looked at the cameras yet this morning. We'll do that. Another thing is that these heat detections, that when we get the satellite heat detections, they're often, they can be off by up to like a kilometer. The satellite, oftentimes, like this satellite might be up somewhere over Utah or something, so it's looking at this really pretty oblique angle, and it's easy for it to kind of have, especially if it sees heat in the column, it's easy, like if sometimes you'll see a string of these satellite dots off in the middle of nowhere. So you always have to kind of be conservative in interpreting what you see on the, like the fire map. And we're gonna get down to lake fire in a minute. Okay, so this fire, lake fire, it's got some potential. I did a video a week ago about the live fuel moisture up at this same elevation. Like we pulled over at King Vale and we burned some manzanita. Well, we cut manzanita and took it back to my fire pit, and Chico and burned it. So when you get up on top here, there's still green grass, there's green brush. As we said in the last video, fires can overcome kind of the live fuel moisture or seasonal moisture when they've got wind and slope pushing them. But then when they have to back downhill, oftentimes, you know, the live fuel moisture inhibits that more. It's kind of like if you, you know, if you light a fire at the, if you light the bottom, if you have a big pile of kindling and you light the bottom of it, it's going to burn up through the rest of the kindling. If you light the top of it, it sometimes it'll just go out. It won't burn back down in, because the heat rising up from the fire below dries the wood above. So for the Royal Fire, it's problematic just because this is super steep, gnarly terrain and difficult to fight fire. They're going to put a lot of retardant on it. They had a lot of planes on it yesterday. The weather's a wild card. The up canyon winds are a factor. We might continue to see it spread in the canyon. I don't have a lot of great intel on it right now. Let's pull up the webcams if we can. Let's search for what's the camera called there? So many cameras. Let's look at this one. Signal peak. So it's active this morning. Let's look at the last 12 hours. The fires always look bigger at night. Yeah, so it's active. It's going to wake up here, and it's going to run with slopes. I think, you know, hopefully it does not cross over and burn up towards Serene Lakes. But anytime the fire's, you know, downhill view in a steep canyon, it's a bad situation. So if you are in Serene Lakes, you're getting evacuation warnings, pack up early. I was talking to I've got a guy, we've got a mapping resource on the Shelly Fire, and I've got a guy up there, and what we tell our folks is, you know, we don't go out on fires except big fires, and the reason they're big is because conditions are extreme. So fires like the ones we're having right now only happen when we've got extreme fire behavior, extreme weather, extreme potential. And so when you think of, as far as talking to young firefighters, a common denominator on fires that kill people is an unexpected change in conditions. It blew up unexpectedly. We didn't expect that the fire would jump the canyon. We didn't expect that the wind would come up. We didn't expect that the thunderstorm would go by and the outflow winds would blow the fire away. And that this time of year, when we've got big fires, that is an indication that we're in that 2 percentile weather that is when fires get large. And so we should never be surprised when there shouldn't be an unexpected event that suddenly sends the fire coming your way. Like, expect this time of year, expect big things to happen, expect extreme fire behavior. So it's never bad to evacuate early. So in the case of Serene Lakes, what I like to look at is like, okay, how far did this fire started in the afternoon? It ran to the top of the hill in like an hour. And so maybe it'll take, you look at the size of this red dot, add another size here, if it ran up the canyon. Now, one thing I will say is that fires don't often like run the whole canyon. Like it's unlikely to me that the fire is going to run all the way to Cedars in a day, because the effect of gravity is greater than the effect of wind. So the fire's going to, fires want to run up the hill. But we've got, this alignment here right up to Serene Lake. So if the fire becomes established on this side of the river this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon with steady up canyon winds, there's no reason that it's not going to go right up to Serene Lakes. I mean, there's fairly discontinuous fuel, but just remember that fires like this spread by spotting. So, you might think, oh, it's only going to spread a mile or something. Well, it can spread right to here and spot to here and burn a little and spot to here. So there's definitely potential for this fire to push up into Serene Lakes, push up into the Cedars. As far as getting over the summit and burning down in Sugar Bowl, I don't see that happening in a hurry. It might happen over the next couple of weeks. But I wouldn't, if I was in Sugar Bowl today, I probably wouldn't. I'd be paying attention. But just pay attention to what folks are telling you. The folks that are figuring out evacuation warnings and mandatory evacuations, they're smart folks. They got good science, and you should heed their warnings. Anyway, it's another one we'll keep our eye on. There's still, in the big picture, not a lot of, it seems like things are really busy, but we've got a couple large fires and we've got a couple small fires, and we're not yet at this critical drawdown of no airplanes. But if we get as we get more starts, as we have more aircraft committed to existing fires, things get it gets more difficult to get resources. Now, fires like this and Shelly and Lake, they're kind of this fire's still at a point where they might be able to be effective with aircraft. A fire like the Shelly, they could have all the large air tankers in the world, and they're not going to stop that fire from burning that whole watershed if it wants to. Same with Lake. Someone said 2% weather. 2% weather means that we kind of can put out fires 98% of the time, and then there's 2% of the conditions that it wouldn't matter how much we could have 10 times as much money spent on firefighting, and we wouldn't be able to put out the fires that happen under this extremely difficult fire weather. Okay. I've got to go to work, folks, so I'm going to jump down the lake real quick. Let's jump out here. Ow, what's going on there? All right, so here's the heat satellites for the fire down here, the lake fire, and then turn that off. I'm kind of choking my computer with all this intel. Here's the lake. Looks like I got it already. Let's see. Yeah, so here's the lake fire. Captured a few different ways, but this is last night's infrared on lake fire. Red is all places where the fire is really hot and actively spreading. Yellow is places that it's kind of cooling down. Scattered heat, oftentimes that's because it's grass or scattered brush. Red oftentimes is the heavier fuels. Here's Zaca Lake in the middle. I know it's kind of hard to I don't have a lot of landmarks drawn here yet, but we've got Los Olivos over here, Los Alamos over here. This is Sedgwick Reserve, UC property in here. I don't really have a whole lot of intel. Here's Santa Maria over here on what the fire's what the strategy is. I don't have a lot to say about it, so we'll look into it a bit. Like I said before, this fire is going to burn for a long time, and we don't. It's pushing out to the edges of the areas that we really are interested in. So, if you're down there, and you have a specific question, I might have a little time to look into it. But other than that, it's a big fire burning in an area that is adapted to big fires, and it's going to be another get to the end of the season, it's gonna just be another color on this map of all the other big fires we've had in the past down there. I think that's one thing we like to talk about on the lookout, is just that this is a map of all the large fires in the last 100 years. And that's why it's spinning the rainbow, because we're making the computer think really hard. Had a comment over here from Andrea Calkins. Turn the forestry management over to the native Indians. They know how to manage it. We got a interview on the lookout. If you look at on the YouTube channel called Thanksgiving Fire Back, where I talked to a couple young native folks that are researchers that are talking about this stuff. It's talking about fire back and how there's all this movement around land back to native people, but that giving native people back their land without giving them back control of fire is kind of pointless, because fire is their tool. And I thought it was a pretty interesting thing to talk about, and pretty awesome. I mean, just to think about that, hey, if we actually gave land in the Shelly Fire back to the native people, if we just took that purple area that's on the map that is part of this global carbon scam, and actually just gave it to the native people to run, they wouldn't really be able to do anything with it unless we also told them, you can do anything you want with fire. We're not going to tell you what you can and can't do. They wouldn't be able to do much with it, because fire is the tool that we need to manage this landscape. And so yeah, native people know a lot about fire, and if we're serious about giving native people back land to manage, we have to let go of this idea that we need to control every fire. Right, anyway, with that, just leave you with this kind of imagery of all the different fires that have happened in the Klamath Mountains over the past 100 years, and then we've got this area out here where there's no fires. And end of the season, we're going to have a different map here, and I'm thinking that we're going to have a color in here filling in this gap, the puzzle piece. And when you look at this country, it's not devastated. There's a lot of places that there's dead trees and brush, but there's also a lot of places where there's forest. The trees that survive, each time you have a fire, the trees that survive are likely to survive the next fire. You got this mosaic, right? But burned often doesn't mean devastated. Oh, yep, map's off screen. Well, it was colorful and there were trees. Klamath Mountains with fire history. What I was talking about here is we've got Shelly out here burning in Kidder Creek, and a whole bunch of area that hasn't burned in a long time that is now going to become part of the what we call the puzzle pieces of fire mosaic. Thanks everyone. Hope you have a good day. We'll keep doing these as long as we can. As fire season, I might get deployed, but in the meantime, there you go.